Development Contributions Rebate Scheme. I will now ask staff to proceed, please. They look so worried.
So this portion of the meeting will provide an overview of the submissions received on the rebates and some staff advice, and then we'll get your feedback on where you want to go with these schemes. So we do have a bit of an agenda for today. There is a little bit that we need to get through before we open the floor for your feedback, but there will be points as we move through for you to provide direction. So just a reminder, the Local Government Act enables councils to require developers to pay development contributions to help fund infrastructure to service road development. The development contribution requirements must be consistent with provisions of the LGA. This requires a consistent and transparent approach to setting a development contribution requirement, and there's very little scope for adjustments to meet the council's strategic development goals. So as a result, the council adopted the development contribution rebate policy in 2015 and enables the council to adopt development contribution rebate schemes to promote its strategic objectives and establish rebates for strategically desirable development types. And the rebate policy is designed to ensure that development contribution rebates sit outside of the policy itself. So as a reminder of how we got here, the development contribution policy has been under review since mid-2023. We've had a number of briefings with you over the course of the review, and in some of these discussions you had indicated an interest in considering some rebate schemes. So we had two workshops with you. The first one was on the 6th of May and the second one was on the 19th of May. And in those workshops, you expressed an interest in two rebate schemes, one for existing demand credits and one for high-rise residential in the central city. And on the 18th of June, you resolved to consult on both of those schemes.
Following the 18th of June, we launched consultation from the 23rd to the 14th of July. The consultation was advertised via emails to stakeholders, being developers and residents associations. We had a newsline story and a couple of Facebook posts. We received 40 submissions, which is around the same as the DEC policy review. And these are from 17 organisations and 23 individuals. 42% of those indicated that they had paid DZs before or anticipated paying them in the next 2 years.
So just a reminder of what we consulted on with the existing demand credits rebate scheme. So this scheme was for all development within the 4 AVs, and essentially the way it worked is the existing demand credits were provided for what was sitting on the site before the first earthquake in September 2010. So the proposed criteria was for buildings that were standing on or after the 1st of March, but we also consulted on an option to extend that to all sites in the central city. The scheme had a total funding limit of 5 million and was set to expire on the 30th of June 2027 to align with the introduction of development levies.
So on this scheme, apologies, I have just noted that the graph in your report's off. The numbers are right, but the graph is wrong. So the scheme one, there was a real split in support, with 13 or 32% saying yes, they supported the scheme, 11 saying somewhat, and 14 or 34%. We had an optional question of whether the rebate scheme should be extended to include vacant sites. And here 20, so the majority preferred it to be extended to all sites, while 9 said it should be limited to buildings standing. Another optional question was, if any, what should the funding limit be? 20 submitters commented on this, and half of them indicated that their preference was the max option that we gave, which was 30 million. What submitters liked about the scheme, so I've brought out the top 3 of each for these. There's a more extensive list within the report. 14 said that it encourages development. 9 said that it provides recognition of what was previously built on the site. And 6 said that it provided assistance to landowners still recovering from the earthquakes. What submitters said that they didn't like about the scheme was a perception of ratepayers providing handouts of subsidies to developers, that the funding limits the impact that the scheme could have, and that the expiry date is unfeasible, so it comes too soon, particularly for complex buildings. In addition, 9 submitters commented on the legality of existing demand credits, of the existing demand credits clause within the policy itself.
So on that point, we do have some staff advice, and then we have some legal advice which we'll go into PX for. So as I said, rebates sit outside of the development contribution policy and intend to incentivise certain development types. They are not designed or intended to fix elements of the DC policy, and they should not be perceived as such. So the council has had a policy to limit the life of existing demand credits since 2006. In 2006, the policy limited the life of existing demand credits to 5 years and required that development contributions have been paid for in order to receive the benefit of those credits. In 2007, the policy was rewritten with a working group of councillors and developers, and as part of the recommendations from that working group, this clause in the policy was amended and it was extended to 10 years. And it did not require development contributions to have been paid for in order to receive the benefit of those credits. So developers got the benefit of what was sitting on the site, even if that development predated development contributions.
That was 2007.
What was that?
Did you say 2007?
2007,
So
yes.
pre-earthquake. Yep.
So existing demand credits, the LGA is silent on the use of existing demand credits. We use them in our policy to allow us to meet the requirement under the LGA. They allow us to strike a balance between being fair to developers and giving them time to redevelop the site, and also being fair to ratepayers and ensuring that the liability to provide capacity that we do not require developers to pay for doesn't sit on that site indefinitely. It's also intended to encourage timely redevelopment. So this policy has been reviewed multiple times since the earthquakes, and the feedback that we've had from councillors had been that 10 years was an incentive for developers to redevelop, sort of a use it or lose it situation. So in terms of what other councils do, there is a range across the country from having no credits whatsoever to having credits with a perpetual life. And in terms of the metros, there's also a range. So Auckland has 10 years like we do. Hamilton has a perpetual life of credits. Tauranga give you credit for what is sitting on the site. Wellington, you get credits for 5 years, and then Dunedin is 12 months. So as I said, the LGA is silent on the provision of credits, but DIA does provide guidance for staff in developing development contribution policies and administering development contribution assessments. And in that guidance, they contemplate things that councils could do in their policies with respect to existing demand credits. And one of the things that the DIA contemplates is that you could limit the life of existing demand credits based on when a site last exerted demand on council infrastructure. So what we're doing is not inconsistent with other councils, and it's also been contemplated by central government as a reasonable policy provision. So I think it might be time to go into X.
Just need a resolution.
Okay. So now you're a little bit restricting.
Yeah.
I'll move to Stephen. To go PX. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. There's Carol. Yeah.
Stay with us.
Covered.